Juliana, welcome back to my diversity and inclusion initiative. It's so great to have you here for part two and to be speaking about some incredibly important topics within diversity and inclusion. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me back. I'm very happy to be here again. And I think it's going to be very exciting to talk about these topics that we are so passionate about.
For sure, for sure. It's a pleasure to have you back, Juliana. And I know that it's been quite a busy week for you last week, some announcements and launches, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. I'm really excited to hear more about that. But how I like to start part two off is hearing from you personally, what do you feel are the benefits of having diversity in the workplace?
Well, first, I think having diversity in the workplace is a matter of ethics. So regardless of all the known benefits, we live in a very diverse society. So a diverse workplace should be a no-brainer. But we know that within tech, that doesn't happen very often. So I feel when a company opens the door to diversity, it kind of values creativity and encourages the exchange of knowledge and experiences. I think the environment when a company is diverse is of great learning and engagement. And I think the environment is also lighter and more welcoming. So I feel that companies that really embrace diversity, they also tend to be more profitable. And that's not even me speaking. There's data about this, which is really cool. They are more competitive. They attract and retain better workforce and improve employee collaboration and communication. I think this is one of the biggest benefits. People are usually less resistant to change and more flexible when it comes to teamwork. So there's a thousand I could list, but I think those are really, really important benefits.
Yeah, there's such a long list of the benefits. We could probably go on for hours, Juliana, right? Just from our own experiences as well of being in diverse environments. But you're right, studies show it increases productivity, creativity, innovation within organizations. And can you share personal experiences of where you've seen the tangible value of a diverse environment?
Well, I can talk a little bit personally in my life. For example, the more diverse the company I was working back in the days, the more I felt comfortable being who I truly am. So I think one tangible example is definitely when it comes to employee retention. So before I came to Sweden, I was part of a company that was giving some sort of baby steps when it comes to diversity. And I truly developed a passion. I think the passion began there as well, because I could be part of the processes, which was really cool. I wouldn't have left the company if it wasn't for a change of life coming to Sweden, as I already said. But since I felt that in that company, my voice was heard and I could be part of the changes proposed, and I also could drive the changes myself as well, my engagement was also very high. So I think when it comes to retention of employees and engagement, this is something that makes lots of difference when you have a diverse atmosphere. At least I felt this way. I feel that whenever you can be who you truly are, there's no like salary or anything that could just make you stay more than being you. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, that's so important. And it's really cool to hear that you were involved in your previous company back in Brazil about starting to initiate a more diverse environment. From that experience, what was your biggest lesson learned?
I think one of the biggest is that companies need to understand that diversity and inclusion is not something that comes ready, right? It's not a package that you buy. It's not a company that you hire, a consultancy. I think it's much more about changing the culture and every level of the organization. So I think one of the biggest learnings is that there is some investment that needs to be done, and the investment is like very much long term. We can see the results as employees, but definitely when it comes, for example, for the company being more profitable and competitive, those things take time, and it is a big project and needs a lot of investments. That's one of the biggest learnings I had from this time of my life.
Thank you for sharing, Juliana. You're so right. It certainly is something that takes commitment, resilience. You have to be proactive in making this happen and not just give up because you're not seeing a quick win overnight. The long-term benefits of the things you can put in place to help enhance diversity is so worth that time investment and maybe even financial investment, whatever avenue you choose to take your diversity and inclusion mission. And
Yes.
what are the negative effects of an environment lacking diversity?
So I think, especially within tech, those environments are usually male dominant spaces, and they are spaces of power. So I think everyone consumes technology today, but when we look at how the technology is produced, there are a majority of people who are producing this technology, and they usually share the same pattern. They are men, white, middle class, or upper class, who have always had access to study and privileges. And that is why it's so important to talk about diversity in tech, because this whole tech world we're living in has dictated a lot of our tastes, our choices, and the policies that structure the world. So if tech is thought only for and by one type of person, this can create many problems. I think we've already seen a lot, for example, with facial recognition projects, failing not being able to recognize Black, Asian faces. So I really think that the idea was that we can have multiple perspectives on those issues that are so plural.
It's so important to have diversity in every aspect. And you also mentioned about there being quite a male-dominated field still in tech. So with that in mind, what can men do to be better allies within diversity and inclusion?
One of the first things is about listening and understanding the problem. I think I gave a talk in Canby on International Women's Day. That was really nice. And we were talking about sexism in the workplace and focus on benevolent sexism. That means it's the kind of behavior that you think it's okay, but it's not. So I think this kind of things are really interesting because there are data when it comes to giving feedback to women. In general, women receive much more feedback on their soft skills than their hard skills. And the way that men talk to women in the workplace, it's usually very different from the way that they speak with men. So I think listening and studying about this is the first step. There's a lot of things, a lot of places today that to research and courses, and then of course taking some action as well. It's also important to correct your friend whenever he's doing something wrong or he's saying something that might seem okay, but it's not. That's too harmful. So I would say, first of all, get informed and study about this, and second, take action and try to advocate side by side with women. I think that's the most important.
I think it's all about actually and having a collaboration. This is what's really important. We all have to work together to create a more inclusive and a better environment. And that's a great tip for anyone wanting to become a better ally within the world of diversity and inclusion. And that's something I've started to shift in my Q&A as well. So starting to speak with male advocates and hearing their stories in hope that it will inspire other men or whatever area of diversity to become better allies as well. Really appreciate you sharing that. And I know throughout your master thesis within IT project management at Stockholm University, you focused your research on how gender diversity affects the nature of projects. I'd love to hear a little bit more about this, Juliana.
I'm still in the beginning of this journey. So this master thesis is going to be due in December this year, so I still have some journey to go. And I am doing this with a colleague because this one we can do in peers, which is really nice. We have like different perspectives and we can discuss a lot. It's really cool. But right now we are mostly reading a lot and researching a lot, and we didn't come up with a research question just yet. So we are studying this. And we are doing a lot of interviews with women in leadership positions, especially running IT projects here in Sweden. But for example, one thing that we already know is that women are still underrepresented when it comes to software development projects. And I'm not even talking about the project team, the developers itself, because we know that this is pretty clear that there is a gap. But when it comes to leading projects, this is also something that happens a lot. Today, according to PMI, the Project Management Institute, 70% of the subscriptions and the memberships are from men, and 30% only is female. So even in that level of project management, still very much a male-dominated field. And one interesting thing on this research is that we have not found just yet in the literature a model for increasing women engagement when it comes to leading projects. And I think with what we found so far, that's really interesting, is the study shows that the current solutions that we have for increasing engagement of women in IT project management are not having a positive effect.
Wow.
So this is what we want to explore more, because although there's a lot of initiatives to insert more women into project management and in tech in general, we still don't have data that proves that this is working. So that's why we want to raise this question so much, because we want to make a change. We want to see how we can actually contribute within this research and actually try to bring outcomes and results that can bring some sort of a model. Yeah, so I think this is really cool. It's something that I'm really passionate about. I could speak a lot about this master thesis, but I think I'm gonna know more when I finally publish the thesis in the end of this year.
Of course. Well, I look forward to following your journey and of wishing you the best of luck with the thesis as well. I'm sure you're going to kick its ass, Juliana. But an incredibly important topic. And what inspired you to, I guess, go down that avenue?
During my master's, I had a discipline all about leadership, which was really cool to see different types of leadership and when it comes to managing IT projects. And there was one assignment that we needed to do that was to choose a leader, a very influential person that we could talk about. And I was searching for people that within tech and that had like a really nice journey that I could talk about. And when I made the list of men, there was a huge list. And when I researched for women, we couldn't find a lot. And that was something that I was like, okay, so maybe there is something that's happening here when it comes to managing projects that we need to understand why we don't have much more women doing this. And that was one of the biggest motivations. And of course, I am like all into diversity and inclusion. So I wanted to do something for my thesis that also was a bit of my passion.
Yeah, that's so inspirational. When you can combine education with passion, I think that's fantastic. And it just makes it such a more enjoyable experience. You've done a few interviews, like you said, with women in technology. What have been the biggest takeaways from these interviews? What have you learned? What's maybe shocked you that you've uncovered?
One of them is that most of these women, they lead projects. There are, for development teams, that most of the team is men. So, and the environment sometimes can influence a lot. So we have heard about women that faced a lot of sexism, even being a leader of the project. And one of the things is that their engagement and the way that they drive these projects is completely different whenever there is another woman in the team. So this is something that I feel it's really interesting, because there's also like personality things that can be influential when it comes to the mood of the team when you have a woman leading and a man leading as well. And the interesting part of these interviews is that we're doing them with a woman that leads a project, and the development teams, they're led by women, projects that are led by women. So we take developers as well, and we interview them, and we ask them, what is the difference when you have a woman leading you and when you have a man leading you on the other side? And there's like a very interesting insights about this. Of course, it's never the same. It's from interview to interview. But I think one of the biggest is that whenever it's a woman leading another woman, the environment tend to be much more comfortable for some reason. And I guess this is one of the takeaways that I took from these interviews. I guess whenever you have a woman in your team that can support you being a leader, things tend to be slightly easier.
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly resonate with that just from my own personal experiences in the past as well. That definitely makes sense. What kind of things do you think we could be doing to make a change on this, just from the interviews you've been having, conversations, and your master thesis?
Well, one of them I think I've already mentioned before. Men need to be onboarded into this. And I guess they need to be the drivers of change as well. We cannot fight this war by ourselves. We need allies and we need collaboration. And I think doing this research, what we hope, me and my partner, is that we can bring some insights for this change to happen, but especially for men, and bring data to prove that whenever you have a woman leading a project, the way that the project is led is completely different from a man. It could be both in both ways. It could be with a negative insights and positive insights. But what we want is to bring data. And I think one of the biggest ways we can change things is actually to doing this kind of research and bringing data to people, because everything is pretty much on our minds now. We know that the problem is there, but there is a lack of data to prove it.
I think that data is so powerful for people visually to see that as well and then act upon it. Thank you, Juliana, for sharing about your master thesis. It sounds really great, and I'd love to keep in contact with you about that as well, and to hear how maybe we can work together to make more of a change. Something that I also want to talk to you about, and I guess ask yourself, is why is it important to talk about the representation of women of color in tech?
Well, that's a great question. And I think first, because most of the time when we bring diversity, the racial issues are yet not highly discussed. So there is, of course, a huge woman in tech movement, and that I think it's happening in most of the countries today. I know that there's a big one happening in Brazil as well, but especially there, when we do have like such a diverse society where I come from, the woman in tech movement is still raised in a white feminism context. So it is taught by white women and for white women. So I think it's important to talk about representativeness and how important it is for women of color who are in these spaces, like me, for example, to be able to look to the side and recognize each other. And it's not just about having women of color in the workplace, but it's also about how we can create an environment for them to stay and to maintain and support themselves as well.
Mm. Yeah, because having a sense of belonging in a business is so important. You could have an element of diversity or inclusion, but if you don't personally feel like you belong in that environment, then it really is invalid. And you're so right. You know, diversity, it comes in so many different forms, and every form is equally as important. What have been the main challenges faced by women of color in tech?
One of the main challenges is the difficult access to tech in general. I think having access to proper education and being encouraged to know that you can be there. The lack of opportunities as well given to women of color when we compare to other groups.
Mm.
And as much as people today are very concerned about diversity, in general, as I said, people do not understand that diversity is something that does not come ready, and it's necessary like to make an investment and effort and to be able to bring these people in and create also a safe environment for them to stay. Another challenge, I think, is the question of representativeness, because when you don't see anyone like you in the workplace, you don't think you can be there. You think that you don't belong, as you mentioned before. Belonging is so, so important. And if it's already a challenge to be a woman in tech, for women of color, it ends up being a challenge, even more challenging, because we have to deal not only with sexism, but also overlapping racism as well.
Yeah. What can we do to make a change to help support you, for example, Juliana, in feeling this way?
I can say about my personal experience that when I was not identifying myself in most of the places I worked with, especially when it comes to leadership, I never thought I could be a leader because there was no one there like me represented in these positions. So I really like to quote from, I guess it was from Shonda Rhimes' book. I don't know if you read My Year of Yes. It's a really good one. I can recommend. But she talks about being an FOD. And FOD stands for first, only, different. And then when you are an FOD, first, only, different, it's like you are part of a very select club. And we know one another on site. And we all have the same like wary look in our eyes, the look that wishes people like could stop thinking that it's remarkable that we can be great at what we do while being woman, while being Black, while being Latino, while being Native American, while queer. But when we are part of this group, we are saddled with the burden of this extra responsibility, whether we want it or not. It's not optional for us. So I think being part of this club many times in my life meant that I was used as a diversity token for companies that were not diverse at all. And I think I didn't get second chances very often, which is also something that we definitely need to change. As being part of this club, I already have the burden and the extra responsibility to build opportunities for the next generations to have second chances. So I think that in order for us to change that, that we are the first, only, and different, we need to fight for a better world, and we need to fight for the next generations to have second chances, the ones that we didn't have.
Yeah. So true, Juliana, and thank you for sharing your own personal experiences. Again, this highlights the importance of allies, having support systems around you, no matter what your background is, the color of your skin. We have to work together to make a change and support each other, and that is so important. For you, what is the role of tech in the reproduction of racism and structures of social exclusion?
Sometimes I keep thinking on how we in general tend to separate technology from humanity. And I think technology is not an ethereal thing that's born out of nothing. So when a product and service is built, all the choices behind the smallest of the decisions are thought by people and human like us. So I think the people creating the technology are a big part of the system. And if many are actively excluded from the creation of technology, then this technology will benefit a few while harming a great many. So I think that because we live in a society that is so exclusionary, unequal, racist, sometimes very sexist, these technologies can carry these behaviors and the worldview of those people who create them. I think if we live in a society where most of technologies are produced by a certain type of person, we are failing to embrace a lot. We fail to produce more technology that are inclusive.
Yeah.
So I think technologies can indeed reproduce racism and a lot of social exclusion. And when it comes to AI, for example, I read once, I think, a comparison whenever you're making a lasagna. So if you mask the lasagna ingredients very early in the process, the whole thing is going to be ruined. I think it is the same thing with AI. Like, you have to be very intentional about what you put into the models. Otherwise, it is very difficult to undo. So yeah, I think that technology have like a very, very big role when it comes to reproducing racism and structures of social exclusion. But of course, we are the ones behind everything. So we are the ones that should change.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think that also ties back, Juliana, to the first question, the benefits of having a diverse workforce, because the more diverse your tech team is, the less chance of this happening. How can technologies contribute to building a fairer and more equal society for women of color?
I think for tech to become this tool of social transformation that we want so bad, I think it's important that we think about diversity when it comes to tech production. So whenever we're producing something, we need diverse teams. We need more people thinking, producing, and criticizing tech as well. And although we don't know all the impact that this has on our lives right now, we already know that it can reproduce many prejudices and exclude many people. I think it is a very complex field, but I think we always have to think that technology is not neutral and that it carries the worldview and the baggage of people who create it. And I think it's very different when a person of color, for example, creates technology, because the worldview is very, very different. So I think, yes, the technologies can definitely help building a desire for a more equal society. One way is to bring more people to this discussion and to bring different people with different background to this discussion. But that's not the tech that will do it. This is us. This is people.
And with this all in mind, Juliana, and thank you again so much for sharing such important insights. I know that you have now launched your very own nonprofit, Beela.se.
Yes.
So
Yes.
a huge congratulations, Juliana. I know when we first spoke, you said that that was something that you're working on, and I'm so pleased to hear that it's launched. So can you tell me a bit more about Billa and the mission?
Yes, definitely. I can spend hours talking about this because it's my baby and we are super, super happy. So we launched on International Women's Day, and it was on purpose, of course. We wanted to have some things to celebrate in this important day. I think we are already making an impact, which is really good. Billa is a support network aiming to empower immigrants in Sweden to join the world of tech. And I think Billa is a very personal project to me. And it's because my biggest network here in Sweden is with immigrant women who came here usually with no job. So I am kind of part of the 0.1% that comes with a job and not marrying a Swede or comes with a husband, and the husband usually have the job, the partner. So these women, they usually have a hard time to start right away in the Swedish market, especially when they don't know the language or they don't have, or the professional background that they have requires sometimes years of study here in Sweden to be able to practice, like doctors, lawyers, for example. So it is a very personal project to me. The whole inspiration, I think it was pretty much because I was doing this more or less in an informal way and helping this woman and mentoring them. And I decided it was time to scale up and actually try to reach out to more women. And why not share my knowledge and share what I already learned in this way with this woman.
That's so refreshing to hear. And what's the inspiration behind the name as well, Juliana?
So naming was something very challenging for us. I think it was, we spent, I don't know how many months talking about different names. And, we wanted to have something that had any kind of meaning. But also we didn't want to put anything that was so obvious, like tech in the name, because everything has tech. So we wanted to do something different. So what we did is that we started playing around with words. And, we came up with ela, that is the Portuguese, Spanish, I think pretty much Latin pronoun for she, her. And then we wanted, okay, so maybe we could do something like be her. And then it became Beela, and then it became Billa. And then since there is B in the name, we thought, okay, maybe we should have bees, because, it's such a representativeness of feminism and the queen bee concept. So all the branding was thought about this. So yeah, it's pretty much playing around with words.
Love it. Absolutely love that. Play around with words. And I can imagine, although it took some time, it was really exciting as well. And once you found the name to build all of the content around it, what a great, great step in the right direction. And how did the process look from conception to now launch?
In terms of conception, I had all these ideas on my mind. I started a knowledge base. Whenever this woman came to me, even before thinking about Billa, I thought about, okay, let's start a knowledge base. Everything I know about boot camps and code academies, everything that's happening, relevant events, I'm going to put in a Google Docs. And then I'm going to start sharing. Whenever people come to me and ask, hey, how can I join tech? How did you land your job, or this kind of things, I knew where to start. So I had all these ideas in my mind. Everything started coming in, and then I wrote them down. Then I came up with an initial business plan. And this initial business plan was very much a canvas that I used in the internet. Like I took some sort of non-profitable canvas, and I was, okay, let's start putting these ideas here and let's see where it goes. So I showed this to one of my best friends here in Sweden, Denise. She is my co-founder, and she absolutely loved the idea. And one of the reasons she loved the idea is because she is one of these women that came with her husband and she joined tech. And she was like, if I had this before, that would be super helpful for me. So I think she embraced the idea. And okay, we decided to start, and then I thought, okay, let's give it a step back. Let's start interviewing some of these women. So we took some of our friends and some people that we met, like through networking, And then we did some, we kicked off some initial user research, and we wanted to understand what were their needs, what they were lacking, very much product oriented, because this is what I do. So we did some user research, we took the results, and we started writing down our mission statement. And that's very important for us, because aligning on the vision and the mission when it comes to a non-profit is very, very important. It's very important that the person that it is, or the people that it is with you, align on this. So we did our strategy and an initial roadmap. And then another friend of mine from Brazil, she offered her design services, and she said, okay, I could help with this and that. And then we started having these like very informal meetings every Friday, where we would bring some wine, discuss, and do like a very much a girls club. Then we started using Trello with some of the cards, that things that we wanted to do. And in the end, I defined what I call a MLP, like a minimal lovable product. So we kind of set the International Women's Day as the target of our initial launch. And in the meantime, I found 2 amazing mentors. There are other people here in Sweden with the experience of opening nonprofits, and they are extremely helpful. So that was all the process, I guess, from conception to launch. Everything very informal, I would say, like a girls' club.
Yeah, love it. And the rest is history, as they say, Juliana, right? It's so exciting to hear about the launch and the process that goes into something like that as well. It certainly takes time, but having that passion is so important. And it's interesting you mentioned about the personal mission statement, finding your why. I have to say that I read a book by Simon Sinek, Start With Why, and that was something that he really highlights, you know, realigning with your personal mission statement, and just every decision you make, everything you do is working towards that why. And your why at Billa, I think, is fantastic. So I know you're only early stages within Billa, but throughout, I guess, the planning stages and maybe even the launch, what has been one of your biggest challenges in setting up something like this?
I would say first, time management. Definitely. We are both doing this as side projects. We have our 9-to-5 jobs. So we have to organize ourselves very well to plan everything ahead and have time enough to have like a healthy work-life balance. And I think we are just 2 girls with 0 experience in doing this. This is also very challenging. So we are being like social media people, building newsletter. I'm going to be a podcast host. I have no idea how this is going to be, but everything is new for both of us. But we are very much driven by passion. And we are so motivated to do impact in these women's lives. So we put a lot of love into this initiative. We are doing our best. We know that there will be mistakes along the way, which is fine, but we will learn a lot with them as well. So I think the beginning will be a little bit hard for us. Lots of time invested into learning new things, new tools, and developing skills. But I think the experience is fantastic.
Certainly. You're going to be wearing many different hats, but
yes,
the thing is, Juliana, you know, it's like anything, you do learn by doing. And the more you start doing something, the more natural it becomes, the more of it just seems to flow. And I'm sure you will find your flow. I'm very excited to hear more about the podcast.
The idea of the podcast, it is to be like an inspirational platform. So we're going to bring stories of women that immigrated here, and they're going to be very open on how they felt and how they struggled finding their first job, and how did they decide to join tech, and their background. So it's going to be very personal. It's going to be like a storytelling podcast where they're going to be very open about their stories. But also we want to do like something really fun, something that people can feel very comfortable.
That's so cool to hear. And again, it's creating relatable role models as well, right, for people, and just that sense that you're not alone in having these feelings. And by hearing people's stories, journeys, you can learn so much. I think it's fantastic what you're doing. And how can people and the community get involved to help with your initiative?
Well, everyone is welcome to help. As I said, we are 2 girls. We have no idea what we're doing, but we are. But I think if you know of anything that's happening, like in terms of code academies, boot camps, events that would be interesting for this group specifically, and our target group, it is people who identify as women and immigrated to Sweden and doesn't have any tech background. So these boot camps and everything needs to be like very much for beginners and for people who have like no clue what tech is about. So if you know about this, you can contact me. We can advertise it. This soon we will also be opening a mentorship program. This is also in a roadmap. So I think what we want to do is basically get people that are established in tech here in Sweden and willing to mentor these girls. And when we talk about mentoring, is mostly we are focused on preparing them to interviews. And if you are, for example, a backend developer, we're gonna match you with somebody that did a backend boot camp, and you can give tips for the interviews, the technical interviews, and the assignments. So this kind of things. So a mentorship program will also come, and you should definitely keep an eye on us if you want to be a mentor. And I think if you're willing to give your time and skills for a good cause as well, like as a web developer, HR consultant, career coaching, we accept volunteers with open arms. And we already have some volunteers, which is really good.
Oh, amazing. That's so cool to hear, because I know for you how important mentorship has been throughout your career, like the importance of finding mentors that support you. So it's great to see that you're duplicating this at Billa, and it just sounds absolutely incredible. With all the experience you have so far, what advice can you share for anyone wanting to set up their own nonprofit?
First of all, find your calling. Find your calling. Get help. Get mentors. As you already said, I'm all about mentorship, and I think get mentors and people who can help you to achieve the mission that you have in mind. I think choose your board wisely and make sure that the people you choose for this board share the same vision as you. I think this is really important. Another advice is listen to what the community has to say. Listen to the community, keep in touch with them, understand what are the pains, have interview people and ask around what are the biggest struggles. You start with what you have. I think that was a struggle for me, because I was like, okay, we're not ready enough. It's never going to be enough. So start with what you have.
Great advice. And have you had any role models within the world of nonprofits that I guess inspired you?
Yes, I do. I do have Marian. Marian is a founder for MStack. And MStack is a Swedish nonprofit focused on women of color. We have become friends, which is really good, but I consider her my mentor as well. She's been really helpful. So one role model would be her.
Outside of that as well, can you share any other initiatives or communities that you're aware of that are also promoting diversity, inclusion, women, historically minoritized groups?
Yeah, I think here in Sweden, there's many of them. I can highlight, as I said, MStack, that is for women of color. They promote events and boot camps as well, code academies. I think now, because of the pandemic, everything is being pretty much virtually. There is pink programming as well that I really love, and I think they have like a great mission. There are some boot camps that are specifically for leadership. I don't remember the name right now, but I know that if you Google it, if you are interested into leadership, I think I'm going to participate in one next week that's going to be about being a CTO. If you are a woman and want to be a CTO, I don't remember their names, unfortunately. But I would say, yeah, Pink Programming, MStack, they are like my biggest role models when it comes to nonprofit here in Sweden.
Amazing. And I think, like you said, it's taking advantage of things actually going digital and virtual, and actually using that to your advantage. Like we discussed, Juliana, we both went to Women in Tech Sweden, right? And how amazing was that experience, even though it was virtual?
Yeah, it was great. I think one of the best events I attended this year so far. Very professional. And I think we're getting so much better when it comes to virtual events, right? I've seen that if you look back 1 year ago in the beginning of this pandemic, everything was the worst. I guess technology is involved is evolving so fast. Everything is so fast. So
Exactly. And it just comes to adapting with the times. And there are so many platforms and technologies available now where you can network at these events, and it feels almost real, but not. So really take advantage, of being virtual and get involved in these communities and initiatives. They are such a game changer, I think, for just having that support, and for your personal development, because you learn so much, right?
Yes, we learn a lot.
So what do you think is the best part about being a woman in tech industry?
That's an interesting question. I think for me, the allies and the friendship that I did, being a woman and attracting other women, um, I think it's amazing. I think the good thing about being a woman in tech is that we can recognize each other. We can recognize the struggles. We can sit and we share a lot of experiences that we've passed through. Maybe not so good ones, but this also makes us closer. So I think every woman I knew in the tech industry, I could relate somehow with a background, with a story, and that made me very, very good and close friends. So I think when it comes to tech, being a woman allowed me to create great friendships for life.
That's really, really lovely to hear. And I can totally relate to that as well. On my quest that's been going on for years around diversity, inclusion in tech, I've genuinely made friends for life as well. And it really is empowering to see the support you can get from the community. Thank you for sharing. And what advice can you share for women trying to get into the technology space right now?
First, this is something that I have been working every day, right? These advices.
We're getting
So
an exclusive from Billa right now.
yes, exactly. So I think, first of all, it's not impossible. It's not impossible. I think that's the first thing that whenever you are from a different career path, you always think, no, I'm not going to enter tech now in my 40s, now in my 50s. It's not impossible. And I think in Sweden, especially, networking matters a lot. So be proactive, attend meetups, events, talk to people. Talk to people. It's so important. You have no idea. When it comes to the job advertises, that sometimes you read and you see that, okay, it's a Superman that I can read here. And those job advertises, those job posts make you super scared to apply it anyway. This was something that we had a discussion we had last week with the girls from MStack, a talk about this, about how can you create confidence to apply for this kind of roles, especially when you don't have a tech background. So I think like 60-70% is about confidence. I think, and the confidence, of course, it is difficult to create, but I would say ask your tech colleagues to interview you. It helps a lot when it comes to creating confidence and being a little bit more relaxed for your first interview. And of course, you can contact me, you can contact Denise from Billa. We will help you to create resilience together. And that's what we're here for. Yeah.
Love it. Yeah, that is fantastic, Juliana. Thank you so much for sharing. And like I say, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. And we've discussed some incredibly important topics today. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
No, that's it. If you don't know us, just go like at Beela.se in Instagram and Beela.se and the web page, and you can find us there. Yeah, that's it.
Buzz over to Billa and check them out. So it will be very exciting for you to see what they're all about. And Juliana, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for your time. And I look forward to hearing more about the podcast.
Definitely keep an eye on our social media. You're going to see everything. And thanks, Ali, for having me here. It was a pleasure to talk. I think you're doing an amazing job. Keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. Bye, Juliana.
Bye-bye.